Hey guys, welcome to Bookish Islander. My name is Juan. Today I'm gonna do the Booktube Newbie Tag. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm a newbie to Booktube. I have all the questions in front of me, so apologies if I look away from the camera at any moment. It's just because I have to read the questions. So the dynamic is pretty easy. You've probably already seen lots of videos like this. I'm just gonna read the questions one by one and give you the answers. This is so that you can get to know me a little bit better. I do believe though that the best way to know me and what this channel has to offer is to watch my videos regularly, but because I'm still new and I don't have that many videos out there, this video could act as a good introduction, so here I go. Okay, so why did you start this channel? Okay, I started Bookish Islander for several different reasons. Number one is because I'm a huge Booktube fan. I've been watching Booktube for about 1.5 years of 2 years. And you might be wondering why I consider myself a big fan if I've only been watching it that long. Well, the reason why I haven't been watching it longer is because I didn't realize it was a thing. It took me a while to find my way through Booktube. It all started because I stumbled upon a video, I guess, of someone talking about books, and I liked it. So then I searched for more, and then I realized that Booktube was a thing. So there are quite a few Booktubers that I really like and that I watch regularly, and I've always thought from the first time I first became aware that Booktube was a thing, that Booktube was fun, and from the very first moment I realized that, I decided that I wanted to be a part of it somehow. It just sounded like so much fun. Now the second reason why I'm doing this is because I love books. I mean, that's the main reason, right? Like, that's a prerequisite. You have to love books. I love books. I read a lot. I've been reading a lot for decades at this point. But I do struggle to find people that I can talk about books with, you know. So in my everyday life, there isn't anybody that I can talk to about books regularly, and I don't like that. So I thought joining this community would give me the chance to talk about books, but also be part of a community, so people can talk to me about books and there could be discussions, mostly down in the comment section. So that's why I started my channel. Okay, second question. What are some fun and unique things you can bring on Booktube? Well, I don't know about unique and fun. I mean, there are lots of Booktubers out there, and there is such a variety of approaches and topics that Booktubers discuss in their channels, and also the way in which they do it is so different. So I like Booktubers that are unique. I like Booktubers that let their unique personalities shine through, but mostly I like Booktubers who have stuff to say, you know, something unique, a unique point of view. And I think I can bring my own unique point of view. It may not be the best, it may not be the more fun. I don't know, that's up to you to judge, but it's my own point of view and I think it's worthwhile. That's what I think I can bring to this channel. Okay, let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3 is, what are you most excited for about this new channel? I'm excited about lots of things, you know, and some of them I've already kind of mentioned by answering the previous 2 questions, but the thing that makes me the most excited is getting a foothold in the Booktube community. I've been lurking in the shadows for way too long, and I just want to be part of this community. Okay, question number 4. Why do you love reading? Now that seems like a simple question, but it's actually a really hard question to answer for me, because I don't remember a time in my life when I wasn't a reader. I mean, I started reading when I was very young. I've always read one way or another. And you know, I just couldn't go without it. Of course, there have been short short periods in my life when I haven't read as much as I do now. And those weren't good times. So I guess the reason I love reading is when I'm reading a lot and I'm reading frequently. I'm reading almost, like right now I read almost daily. At least during the week, sometimes weekends, get busy with all kinds of fun life stuff that basically involve other people. So that makes it hard to read because reading is a solitary experience. But when I get time to myself, that's one of the things that I love doing. So whenever I've had a period in my life when I'm not reading, I haven't been that happy about it. So I guess, to put it in a simple way, and I hope this doesn't sound too corny, my life just seems to become better when I'm reading. So let's move on to question number 5 now, which is, what book or series got you into reading? Actually, no books got me into reading. What got me into reading were comic books. Okay, I guess comic books are books, but not to me. I have nothing against comic books. They got me into reading. I have great appreciation. It's something that reading comic books is something that I grew out of after a couple of years of doing them. I think I started reading them in a big way when I was like 9 or 10, maybe even a bit younger. And the kind of comic books that I read were superhero comic books, either DC or Marvel. I didn't care. I read them all. And I have some of my happiest memories reading those books. Like some of my happiest memories involve reading comic books, superhero comic books. So I grew out of that. Occasionally I would dip back, I would read the odd book. Like I went through a phase a couple of years ago when I went back to comic books. I guess I was trying to rekindle that passion, but they don't speak to me. They don't do whatever they did when I was little. They just don't. So I moved on to books shortly after that. I went through a dry spell after my big comic book phase when I was 9 or 10. But then when I was around 17, I went back to reading books, I think going to university was a big part of that. So I couldn't really pinpoint a single book that I read. There were too many books. But what really got me into reading, the first thing that got me into reading, superhero comic books. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which I think is question number 6. Okay, question number 6. Question number 6, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? Actually, I wouldn't ask them any questions. I mean, when I started this channel, my main questions were technical questions about editing, questions about filming. So what I did is I searched for videos in which different booktubers or other kinds of YouTubers talked about this and explained how they edited or how they filmed. So I've tried to learn. From them, and I think I've got the answers that I needed, and now I'm just on this learning curve with my first few videos, and I'm hoping to improve, So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily ask them anything now, not generally, but yeah, just technical things which I think I've got a handle on, but you'll see if I really do or not. Okay, let's move on to the next question, because I think I'm rambling a little bit now. The next question is question number 7. What challenges do you think starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I thought a lot about this, and I've been thinking a lot about this. I've been thinking about this question for months, and that's why I kept delaying starting my channel. I always came up with excuses. So, one of the main challenges to overcome would be to stop making excuses for myself, and I'm very good at that. But now that I've started, I think the main challenge would be to keep content regularly. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best. But I do think that would be the biggest challenge, or I imagine that to be. But I think it's early for me to know. I don't like anticipating things, so we'll see. Hopefully there won't be any challenges and everything will go smoothly. Okay, let's move on to the next question, which is question 8. We're almost done. Question 8 is, when did you start reading? Well, that's going to be a short question to answer, or that's going to be a short answer to this question because I already said it. I started reading, I think, when I was like 9 or 10 with superhero comic books. I mean, of course, I learned to read at a younger age, but that's when I started reading for fun. that I can remember. Okay, next question, question number 9, which is the penultimate question, is where do you read? Okay, so I mostly read at home. I would describe myself mostly as an indoors reader. The reason for that is that I seem to get distracted when I read outdoors. I'm not good at reading at the beach or by the pool or in a park, or when I'm traveling. I get distracted. It always seems to be too bright, too noisy, too uncomfortable. Part of that is probably also because I like reading lying down, or at least sitting back and being really relaxed and being in a nice, cool, quiet and familiar environment that doesn't distract me, because it's so familiar that nothing much distracts me. So mostly at home, often lying down, or at least sitting back. Sometimes I read at this desk. I mean, you can't see my desk, but I'm sitting at my desk right now, and sometimes I read here. Okay, last question, question number 10. What kind of books do you like to read? Okay, you'll discover what books I like to read by watching my channel, but because this video is an introduction and you might be watching it to decide whether it's, my channel is worth your time, I think it's a good question, actually. I like reading literary fiction, okay? That may be a vague category, and it's not a category I'm 100% comfortable with, but it's the category, I didn't invent it, it's out there. It's when you go to a bookstore and you see general fiction or literary fiction. That's what I like to read. So that excludes genres. I don't like reading detective fiction or fantasy or romance novels, etc., etc. It doesn't mean that that all I read is literary fiction, but overwhelmingly it is. Sometimes I read, or I've been known to read science fiction. Particularly last year I read Dune by Frank Herbert, and I read some Ursula K. Le Guin, some of her work, and I enjoyed all of it. I think those books are more on the literary spectrum of science fiction, but I don't want to go into that debate. That's really dry and boring, and who cares, right? So just so you have an idea, yeah, general fiction, literary fiction, mostly written in English, originally written in English, sometimes in translation. I can read in other languages, so sometimes I read in other languages, in languages other than English, mostly Spanish or French, and sometimes also Portuguese, Italian, Catalan, other languages, but overwhelmingly I read in English, and I read literature that was originally written in English. Mostly I read contemporary fiction for the last 30, 40, 50 years. I'm not always reading the latest book. I like to keep an eye on kind of like new releases, but I don't care. I mean, I have lots of lists of books. I'm always compiling lists of books that I want to read, and mostly they're contemporary fiction, American, British, Australian, I don't care, written in English, a lot of American fiction. Sometimes I read classics from the 19th century mostly. I've read a lot of 18th century novels because of my previous studies. I've had to do that. I don't go back to it that often. I prefer more contemporary fiction. I think that should give you an idea. I could talk about favorite authors and favorite books, but I don't think this question is meant to be answered in such a specific way. So I'm just going to leave it at that, at general literary fiction. And because that was the last question, and I've already answered it, I think, and probably repeated myself, I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to thank you for watching. I'm going to thank you for subscribing my channel if you already have. And if you haven't, and you've liked what I've said in this video, I hope you consider subscribing. Leave me a comment if you have any additional questions, anything you'd like to know about me, mostly geared toward my reading and my video making, and I would be glad to answer any questions that fit that general description. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it here. Thanks for watching. Join me again very soon. Goodbye.